My name is Connie White. I work for SLB, an oil and gas services technology company. I went to Aberdeen University, obviously, that's why we're having this call. And my current role is HR director for the finance function.
Interesting. Thank you very much. And why did you choose University of Aberdeen in the first place?
Why did I choose Aberdeen? So my father is Scottish. I was brought up in England. But growing up, we spent a lot of time in Scotland. And I think I wanted to go to university,
Mm.
not to go somewhere near and come home every weekend.
Yeah.
And Aberdeen was about as far as you can go from the south of England. So yeah, my father's Scottish, so I'd spent a lot of time in Scotland. I must admit, initially, I did want to go to St Andrews, which is where my father is from, but didn't quite get in. And Aberdeen was my second choice. So,
Yeah.
and I have no regrets, I have to say.
Yeah, interesting. And apart from your education and studying, what were some of your favorite memories from Aberdeen?
Um, I think the history, I think it felt like quite a privilege to be studying studying in the old town, 500 years of history. I think it was maybe in my second year, the 500th birthday of the
Yeah.
university. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, just being surrounded by all that history, I love that. The student union was very, very popular when I was at university. I'm not sure if I think it's changed. Um, Hillhead Halls of Residence, is that still there? I guess
It
it
is
is.
still there, yes. Yes.
Um, yeah, good memories of that, first time living alone with a bunch of young people, same age, lots of fun. Yeah.
It's nice. And did you participate in any clubs or societies or maybe a student union?
I mean, I went to the student union
Yeah.
bars a lot, and I actually worked in one of the bars in the student union. In terms of clubs and societies, not so much. So in first year, one of my flatmates was a big skier, so I joined the ski
Mhm.
club, and there was a dry ski
Yeah.
slope in Aberdeen at that time. I don't think it's there anymore, so we learned to ski on that and had a couple of ski trips. I also dabbled in the rowing club, which was quite
Mhm.
fun, but really after first year, I didn't participate too much.
What were your career aspirations while studying, and how did they change, or did they change throughout your studies?
I'm not sure when I went. Well, so first of all, they did change because my intention originally at university was to study literature, which I did for the first 2 years, but I also studied economics. Um, I had taken a couple of gap years before university and I'd worked in a small accounting firm. That's why the economics. But really, I was interested in literature. But I found after 2 years, firstly on the literature side, I found that studying it had kind of eroded my pleasure of reading. And I found I was doing quite well in economics. So I took a change of course in third year and decided that I would take economics all the way and drop literature. Um, so, I guess at that point, I decided that, finance was what I was good at. And, it probably made sense to study economics.
That's very interesting. And as a student, did you have any internships, part-time jobs, or volunteering experience?
I didn't have any internships. And I was thinking about this actually, because, in my current role, we talk a lot about internships within the function. I can't think of a single friend that I was with at university that had any internships.
Hmm.
We all have part-time jobs. Now, I was quite lucky because I had taken those gap years. I think after my second year, I decided to spend the summer in Aberdeen and not go home. Um, and I managed to get a job in the finance department of an oil and gas services company, not SLB, it was another company.
Mm.
And of course, it was considerably better paid than working in a bar or
Yeah.
as a waitress. And I managed to convert that after I spent the summer there. I managed to convert that into a part-time job for the rest of, the last 2 years of university. And eventually, in fact, they hired me full-time. So I guess that was my kind of unofficial internship, if you like.
That's very impressive. Very well done. And what is your current job and responsibilities at SLB?
Okay, so I'm fairly new in the current role that I have. So I'm HR director for the finance function.
Mm.
So I report to the CFO of the company. Uh, I'm a finance professional. I've spent 24 years
Yeah.
with the company working in finance. But I got this job just in summer this year. So it's my first time working in a different function outside of finance, which is quite interesting. There's lots to learn. So really the role is principally talent management, of course, managing people's careers. What is our hiring strategy? What kind of people do we want to hire? What kind of
Mhm.
backgrounds? What kind of professionals do we want to develop and how to develop them into the professionals we want them to be? There's also a performance element of my job where, we think about the performance of the function and the performance of the people
Yeah.
within the function. Kind of there's a strategy around kind of separating the accounting roles from the commercial roles.
Mhm.
So, I think that we talk a lot about how we can do things more efficiently so that our people are left with more value added tasks, which is better
Mhm.
for us, but it's also better for them because they're not working on the day-to-day accounting.
Mhm.
I think, having spent 24 years with the company in the function, if I'm moving
Yeah.
people around to different jobs, obviously I can relate because I've had many different roles in the finance function myself. I've worked in, 6 or 7 different countries. I've moved a lot, so I can relate to all
Mhm.
of the challenges that, anyone we're moving may have.
Interesting. And you worked in so many different countries throughout your career. And how was transition like? Were there any countries that were more difficult to adjust yourself to? Or
Um, well, first of all, I would say, I have worked in a lot of different countries. Uh, but it does get, every move gets easier, because we're a company where, the entire company has this culture of, there's a certain amount of people that will kind of cross different countries.
Mhm.
Eventually you get to the stage where wherever you go, you are going to meet somebody that you
Yeah.
worked with in another country. I mean, just here in Paris, there's people I worked with in Bergen in Norway 20 years
Yeah.
ago, 2 or 3.
Wow.
People that I worked with in Kuala Lumpur in the US. The more you move, the more people you will bump into again who you're very familiar with. I think that a younger, more naive, less worldly me probably would have thought that okay, all of my friendships would be limited to people that are from the UK, for
Hmm.
instance, because we, had the same upbringing, we watched the same TV shows, we, good
Yeah.
kind of cultural fit, irrespective of culture within the UK. As long as you're born and brought up in the UK, then, you'll have a natural affinity. Um, After 20 years of moving around, I realized how naive that was, and that people at the core are essentially the same wherever you go. And no matter how different that culture is, whether you're, in the Middle East, you're in Asia, you're in the Americas, you will always find people that you click with.
Yeah.
And now I have friendships with people from all over the world, right?
Mhm.
Of course, when you go to, the hardest places, I think, I can't think of any, to be fair, I haven't been to hardship locations. We have some hardship locations, um, some in Africa, some in the
Yeah.
Middle East. I haven't been to any of those hardship locations. So I don't think I've found any of my assignments in any of the countries, harder than any other, to be honest. Of course, you have, especially in the office, you have some countries that have, better or poorer kind of culture around work-life balance. So, for instance, Norway and Australia
Mhm.
are places where, they put a lot of store in work-life balance, and people value their time out of their office more than maybe some other countries. But,
Yeah.
adapt.
Interesting. That's very interesting. And are there any particular projects that you are proud that you were involved in throughout your career?
Uh, yeah, I think, one project that I was in, the biggest project I was probably involved in is, back in 2010, we decided as a function to create a financial services hub in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Uh, I was working within tax at the time. I've spent half of my career in tax. And I was asked to head up the tax function that we were going to create there. So, we started from nothing, and we basically took all of the accounting activities from the Eastern Hemisphere, so Europe and Africa, Middle East and Asia, and we transferred those positions basically to the financial services, the financial hub. So this was really, we have a fairly big global business
Yeah.
services organization now, which of course finance is part of. But that project team, we kicked the whole thing off.
Mhm.
We were the first function to do it. Uh, now we have multiple functions within the global business
Yeah.
services. We're in 3 different countries. We're in Bucharest and Romania and Colombia, as well as Malaysia. So it's turned into this, massive organization, and we were there first. It was very rewarding because you go from kind of hiring from having nobody to hiring. I think by the time we left, there were maybe 600 people in the hub.
Mhm.
I was there for 4 years. 200 of them were tax. And now that I'm HR director, of course, I'm looking at the careers of some of these people that were hired back then in
Yeah.
2010. And it's amazing, it's kind of, I always tell people that it's the job that keeps giving,
Yeah.
because wherever I go, I was like, oh, I remember him, he was in the hub, or I remember her, I hired her. So, yeah, that
That's
was
very
a rewarding
impressive.
experience.
Interesting. And how has SLB changed over time that you've been working there for? How did,
Um, We have changed. I think at the core we're the same. Our our culture is kind of built around people, performance, and technology. We are a technology company, and that's always been, a couple of things that I would say, go beyond culture. They're part of our DNA. That's technology and diversity of nationalities. That's always been in our DNA. Wherever you go in the world, even if you're not mobile and you're working for us locally, you will be working with a very diverse range of nationalities. So that's always been in our DNA. I think, like many companies post COVID. I mean, we had a rebranding a couple of years ago. And we've been not pushing our culture, but kind of defining our culture. And on the people side, I think obviously we're much more flexible, like many companies post COVID. People can work from home a couple of days a week. I think, in terms of diversity, we're expanding it much more, and we're talking about inclusivity and different opinions. Everybody's opinion counts, psychological safety. We're, on work-life balance. I feel that we're walking the talk a lot more than we maybe have done in the past. So yeah, I think, on the people side, definitely, I think, we're taking actions on surveys and so, but, at the core, we are what we've always been.
Yeah.
We're just, I don't know, kind of expanding it a bit more. And, when we talk about technology, it kind of, we talk a lot about innovation, irrespective of, whether you're working in operations or in a function. We want everyone to innovate. That's why we want to be more inclusive, because the more ideas you have, the more you can innovate. So I think we're making progress, and it's not something that's just written on a poster somewhere. We're actually taking action, which is good.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Absolutely. And does SLB provide internships for students?
Yes. If you go on our website, actually, you can register interest. So, I can speak for the finance function. In fact, I was on a call about this last night. We do have internships. We're trying to formalize it a little bit, to formalize the program. Because, we have lots of different countries that are, have slightly different programs. Something we did in the US recently, or within the last couple of years, which has been a really big success, is, we're taking on fresh outs for a kind of 2-year program where, they do 4 different jobs over 6 months each over years. And it's been in fact, one of the questions, it was being presented to me last night, and one of the questions I asked was, the utopia is if we had a program where students were fighting to get on our internship program. And actually, the lady that's kind of running it in the US, she said that at this year's career fair for the university in Texas that we've been targeting, she said the queue at our booth was by far the longest. So, you get to the stage where if you put a good program in place, the students will talk about it and share it, and that's the kind of ideal. So, we're kind of ideally we would replicate where we can something similar.
Yeah. Wow, that's very interesting. And what would be your general advice for how students can stand out when they're applying for these internships? What what
Um,
SLB is looking for?
I think, show us, so something important to know about, at least in my experience
Mhm.
in this company, is, uh, for us, it's not so much about what you know, it's about your capacity to learn. So for instance, in 2004, I was working in controllership roles. I was offered a job in tax and I knew nothing about tax.
Yeah.
And not many companies would have given someone the job that I got at that time, to manage the taxes for our entire UK organization, uh, with no tax knowledge. But of course, I picked it up because you're curious, you want to
Mhm.
learn. It's interesting to learn something new. So for us, it's not what you know, it's your capacity to learn. So show that you're curious. Show us you're curious and show us that you're creative. Um, Come with ideas. Something that something I would say to young people is that we have as much to learn from you as you have to
Mhm.
learn from us.
Yeah.
When I hear maybe some of our junior managers talking about, well, the new hires that come in, they don't, they don't know how to use Excel anymore. So, it takes longer because we have to train them. And I say, well, maybe we shouldn't be using Excel. Maybe the problem is with us that, we're not innovative enough to be using something else. What are they using if they're not using Excel?
Mhm.
They're probably using Copilot or I don't know.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, come with ideas. Don't challenge the status quo.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Thank you. And the next question is, how important networking is, in your opinion, and how students can the best benefit from it?
So I would say now that I'm in this role, I'm realizing that networking is actually very important.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm realizing, while my networking internally within the company, has always been okay, I've never really
Mhm.
networked so much outside of the company.
Yeah.
And I should have done it more, and I'm making efforts to do that. That's where you come in, Vadim.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's important. I've been involved in a female mentoring program that we have in the finance function. We started it 5 or 6 years ago, and that's a question I get asked a lot by my mentees.
Mhm.
And really, it was at that point that I started thinking, you know what, I haven't networked enough myself. So I think it's very important. It's a great way to get ideas of how others are doing. So, first of all, internally, of course, you want to create a network so that you can leverage on advice, you can share ideas. Um, you want to have sponsorship. The more people that know you, the more, when people are sitting around discussing next roles or who can fit for this next role, your name's
Yeah.
more likely to come up the more sponsorship you have or the more people know you. Um, but, having said that, I would also caution, don't force it,
Mhm.
develop your network with the people that you have a connection with, you know.
Mhm.
So it's much more natural when you reach out to them because you know that, you had a mutual connection, you kind of click, same kind of thinkers. I don't encourage people to randomly reach out to senior members internally and try to force, try to make
Yeah.
it as natural as possible.
Interesting. Thank you. And what books or podcasts would you recommend career and non-career related?
Well, Something I didn't say earlier is that kind of also comes within my remit is communication within the function. And according to my learning and development manager and also my communications manager, we were talking about this recently. He's telling me that podcasts are kind of maybe becoming less popular, and that people are more likely to, or young people are more likely to like the short kind of 30-second type videos, TikTok if you like, but on a more serious level maybe. I have to admit, I don't listen to very many podcasts, or any, in fact, if I'm honest. And I'm rightly or wrongly, I haven't spent a lot of time reading kind of, what would that genre be called? The kind of self-development type books. I
Yeah.
mean, one of the books that we have been reading, outside of the female mentoring program that we do, we also have these mentoring circles where, maybe 5 or 6 people would turn up and discuss a chapter within a book called How Women Rise,
Yeah.
which I find quite interesting because it's kind of, 12 habits that are typical for women. And I can relate to a lot of them, and they're quick, good discussion points. So that one I recommend actually. But, outside of that, I like fiction. You can probably tell
Fiction.
from behind
Yeah.
me. But I recently read a book which I loved by a lady called Muriel something or other. Muriel Barbary, I think, called The Elegance of the Hedgehog, which I really enjoyed. So if
Nice.
anyone's got
You
time,
recommend that? You recommend this book?
I recommend it. Yeah, I loved it.
Perfect. And what did it take for you to succeed in your career, to get to where you are now?
The key to success is being open to change, whatever that change is. There are always change naysayers, that don't like change, don't embrace it. Probably, as you get older, you're maybe more likely to not like change. So yeah, I embrace change, try to see the positive. Definitely at some point early in my career, I realized, certainly in this company, as I said earlier, it's not what you know, it's whether you can learn it or not. It's something I always tell people a lot, and I think maybe this is one of the 12 habits for women, but this goes for everyone. But don't get lost in the detail. It's very easy when you work in finance to just be looking at streams of numbers in an Excel file and double checking, does it add up? Does it reconcile? I always say to people, take a step back and try to think logically on a big picture level what the answer should be.
Yeah.
And if that makes sense, you can save yourself a lot of time just by, roughly on a piece of it. People make fun of me a lot about talking about my back of an envelope calculations, but I really believe that even if you're reviewing something, I like to put on the back of an envelope what I think the answer should be, so that, if somebody has spent a lot of time on the detail and they're coming to roughly the same answer, I'm not interested in going into their detail because to me it looks right. So I think as you move through the organization, you should look less and less at the detail. You have to be heard, don't be shy to voice your opinions. It's a little bit similar to networking. People have to know who you are. And if you're always if you're always the super quiet person that doesn't like to speak up or ask questions, then, I worry that all of your good work, with the best will in the world, we can't know in an organization of 3,000 people, we can't know, uh, what the output is for every single employee. So if you can make yourself seen, be seen, be heard, it's a good thing. And then I think be authentic, whatever that is. I think it's hard work trying to be somebody that you're not. So save yourself the bother
Yeah.
and just be yourself.
Interesting. Thank
The
you.
best version of yourself, at
Yeah.
least.
That's a great advice. And the last question is, what advice would you give to your younger self? Maybe like yourself as a student. What maybe
Uh,
to change something?
would I change that? I mean, actually, I think one thing I would change is, and this really sounds like an old person advice to young people. Um, when you're at university, and this the same goes for school, but when you're at university and you've picked something to study, you know, I guess I studied just to get the degree that I wanted. And, if I could get away with doing less work, I kind of would, which I'm not proud of. Now that I'm older and, actually, an economics degree,
Yeah.
is fairly relevant for my job. There's, we talk, as you move up in a company, we talk a lot about, how fiscal policy in the US or different places is going to impact our market or whatever. And I realized that, there were plenty of subjects that I did in economics that, I wish I'd paid more attention to,
Mhm. Yes.
just to understand it for understanding its sake, as opposed to, do I know enough to get me through an exam? Can I wing a good result?
Yeah. Yes.
For instance, this is not about studying, but I think when I was at university, there was a petroleum economics
Hmm.
module, which I really wish I'd taken.
Yeah.
I think it would be a great module for some of the people in the finance function to take as an
Yeah.
extracurricular.
Yeah.
So yeah, you never know when you're going to, genuinely real life need the information that you're learning beyond just passing your exam.
Mhm.